We just had a GOP town hall in South Carolina, moderated by Anderson Cooper of CNN, who did a miserable job. One of the worst moderating performances I have ever seen. It was one softball question after another after another. Now, if Anderson Cooper was known for only asking softball questions, which generally it's not like he's known as a tough journalist at all. Remember, he has a segment on his show called Keeping Him Honest, which Jon Stewart famously joked, shouldn't the whole show be keeping him honest, right? So just a little segment. The rest of it, we'll let him lie. But earlier in this primary season, he ripped into the Democrats when he moderated a debate among the Democrats. Asked them one tough question after another after another. In this case, it was literally questions like, what do you sing to your wife? What do you like to do to relax at night, right?
Two different candidates.
Yeah, Clemson or South Carolina. Now, we could have gotten something interesting out of this debate because they were allowed to give longer answers. So Marco Rubio took advantage of that and I think did fairly well, laid out a 4-point plan on what he would do with student debt, which is as substantive an answer as I've seen any Republican give. Now, I'm not convinced by that plan because I'm a progressive and I believe that plan will leave us in just as much student debt as we had before, but at least it was detailed and it was interesting. Now, it also allowed them to state their talking points. So I wanted to give you one of those now to give you a sense of what the Republicans almost always come back to. So here's Rubio with a classic Republican answer.
You look at South Carolina. Why is South Carolina attracting manufacturing? I'll tell you why. What it's doing. It's lowering its taxes. It's reducing the regulatory burden. These things are important. So as president, I want to be an active and vibrant advocate for setting an agenda that we are going to simplify our tax code. We have the highest combined corporate tax rate in the world. That's why I want to lower it to a flat rate of 25% on all businesses, including small businesses. Regulatory reform is important. I've proposed a regulatory budget that says we're going to put a hard cap on how much federal regulations can cost our economy. And that will force agencies to reduce regulations, and it will say if you're going to add a new regulation, you're going to have to cut an existing one because regulations are a burden. You deal with our debt, you roll back regulations, you scale down our tax code, and you are going to see America lead the world in the 21st century economy.
Now, I showed you that because once Republicans are given enough rope, they will always do the same thing. Lower taxes, deregulate everything. I mean, this line of logic that take away one regulation for every one you add, regulations by their nature are harmful, is insane. For example, a regulation is don't poison our food. We'll check the food every once in a while to make sure you didn't poison it. Regulations are by their nature terrible. So if you take the poisoning the food regulation, if you want that, I'm going to take away poisoning your local river regulation.
Well, he also says there's a hard cap on how much damage they can do to the economy. So, oh my God, we just discovered that there's deadly poison. Like let's say the thing that supposedly is causing microcephaly in Brazil. It turns out that actually is. Man, that's really bad for these people. But unfortunately, it would cost them a lot to not do it, and we can't go over our cap. So just put it in the water. Just put it in the water, man.
Yeah, and that's what TPP does. That trade deal literally says if you cost any money to any corporation, they can sue you in an international court and subvert your sovereignty. It's unbelievable. Actual conservatives should despise it, but these guys are all in favor of it, okay, with the exception of Trump. So now, later in that answer, he talked about cutting Social Security and privatizing Medicare and saving Social Security by making sure you retire later, which then costs you tens of thousands of dollars that you paid into Social Security and you never get between the ages of 65 and whatever age they could push it out to, 69, 70, right? So, okay, but at least you could have gotten a sense of where they stood, and I thought Rubio did a pretty good job with his talking points. Carson seemed more likable and more competent than he normally does. Cruz was as smarmy as always, but he had an opportunity to attack Trump over and over again, which he amply took, and he got to go on and on about his talking points.
It's just Islam, Christianity, Islam, Christianity.
Right, as John pointed out in the live coverage, I am for religious liberty, unless it's Muslims, in which case they should have none, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we know all that. But now let's go to Anderson Cooper, because that really was even the larger story here. Because in the beginning of the coverage, and we have it here on tape, this is video 11, we thought, or at least I thought, that Anderson Cooper would be as tough on the Republicans as he was on the Democrats, because it would just be embarrassing if he weren't. I mean, come on, right? In fact, here, watch me say it at the beginning of the debate. I believe Anderson Cooper is going to moderate, and if he does, in the past, at least on the Democratic side, he asked very tough questions.
That's true.
So we'll see if he does likewise for the Republicans.
Doubt it.
Yeah,
You never know.
that'll
You never
be
know.
interesting.
It's Anderson Cooper, so maybe.
Maybe, and if he does, that'll be great, and it could be interesting to see how they respond, especially if he does follow-ups. If he goes soft on them, I know after all this, like it's funny that I would be quote-unquote disappointed, but I really would. I'd be disappointed in him doing the same thing that everybody else on CNN and the rest of the mainstream media does. I don't know why I would have any more faith in Anderson Cooper, but I kind of do.
A little bit for Anderson Cooper, and there's some chance that he'll go hard on one and not on the others. I think there's a very good chance that he is going to ask, like O'Malley got at a couple of town halls, he might ask Carson, why are you still in this race? He might say something to that effect.
Oh, but that's easy. I know. There's no question he's going to say that.
I know. I'm not saying it's a hard, like a tough question to answer, but it's not a question you want to have to answer in public.
Hardly have I been more wrong.
I was wrong about the last part, too.
Yeah. No, he didn't even ask that super easy question to Ben Carson about, hey, why are you still in the race given how bad you're polling? I mean, that's like a standard question you ask Martin O'Malley, anybody, right? And in fact, they asked that to Martin O'Malley countless times in almost every debate that he was in. So, but not to Ben Carson. And see, I thought at the beginning that he'd be tough on him. I'm not kidding, literally never seen a moderator go this soft.
Yeah.
And so it was startling. So if you don't believe me, I'm going to give you just a little sample here. Let's go to video 4. This is his questions to Ben Carson.
Was it hard for you to give up surgery? I mean, you trained for this for so long. You were an excellent surgeon by all accounts.
Some people say I was just an okay surgeon.
We know President Obama plays golf. We know former President George W. Bush paints now. He used to clear a brush, probably still does out in Texas. What do you do to relax?
Play pool.
Play pool.
Okay, so it's a small sample. Every question was a softball. Okay, now let's go to him asking Rubio. Maybe Carson's an irrelevant candidate. Rubio's a very relevant candidate. Maybe he'll get tougher. Watch.
Did you always know you wanted to do public service? One of the things that Ted Cruz said earlier today, he called you that you're behaving like Donald Trump with a smile. I want you to be able to respond. You are elected president. Would you still coach your son in football? You mentioned that you're colorblind, which I hadn't realized, and that you should have seen your clothes before your wife started picking them out.
Yeah,
the other thing I think I found surprising about is you like EDM.
I do.
Electronic dance music.
Yes, I don't want people. Maybe people thought it was something else. So I
Have you ever been to a rave?
Well, no, I've never been to a rave. No, I've never been to a rave.
Well, I don't know.
The Republican primary ended.
Well, I mean, you like EDM. That's what they do. Isn't
I
it?
listen to it. I don't necessarily. I don't.
What kind of music do you like?
I'm going to invade countries.
Oh, Superman or Batman?
I was sort of thinking, I remember Hanson being asked tougher questions by Carson Daly on MTV, and then he asked the EDM question, which is literally a question that Carson Daly used to ask people. It's absurd. I'm sort of thinking, the only out at this point is that somehow Anderson Cooper wanted to ask tough questions, and the management forced him not to, which would still be sort of pathetic. But that's the only explanation that makes sense
there
to
is
me.
only two possible answers, and we talked about it during the live coverage on tyrtnetwork.com/live, which is that either Time Warner thinks, hey, listen, man, I wanted that merger approved, and I think the Republicans would have approved my merger with Comcast. That cost my executives a ton of money. I'm super mad at the Democrats, and I love the Republicans. They would have approved my merger. Then they would have cut my taxes. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hire, no, we're not going to tell Anderson Cooper to ask soft questions to the Republicans. We're just going to hire guys like Anderson Cooper and his producer and his producer's boss who will know, wink, you do the right thing. Okay, hey, don't be the liberal media, right?
Yeah.
So make sure you go soft on the Republicans, and if you do and you go tough on the Democrats, you get promoted. Congratulations, you're a wonderful CNN anchor. And if you do anything else, well, then you're not on CNN anymore. So that is enormously likely. The only other possibility is that they're actually cowed by the liberal media. And look, both are probably somewhat true, because there's Ted Cruz talking about taking away gay rights on the stage. Now, we know Anderson Cooper is gay, right? Does he? ask him about that? No, he kids around and asks him, oh, what do you sing to your wife? So, look, I mean, it doesn't matter because Anderson Cooper is an American and he should care about each one of these issues because it affects all of us. And it's his job to challenge those politicians and ask them tough questions because we're trying to pick the President of the United States as important a decision as we'll ever have to make. But he's sitting there spitting in your eye. So I doubt that Anderson Cooper is a Republican or a conservative, at least in that issue, right?
Yeah.
Although he's a multi-millionaire and probably likes the tax cuts that the Republicans give him. So the best case scenario is he's so afraid of being called a liberal media that he just refuses to ask any challenging or substantive questions to the Republicans.
Or he thinks quite accurately that if he asks a tough question, I guess it's a similar thing, but there have been people who've been removed from doing debate coverage. Megyn Kelly, only because they're sort of staking the future of Fox News on her to some extent, did they go for her instead of Trump in the last little argument that they had. And so for any other network, it's an open question of if Trump said, I won't go on there if you ask me a tough question, they ask him a tough question, and then he refuses to go on again unless you get rid of the anchor. I don't know if they're not going to keep Don Lemon on if it means that they don't get Donald Trump, or let alone Anderson Cooper.
No, but that's not theoretical. So that's a great point by John. It's on that network, CNN, that Candy Crowley was removed from the debates because in 2012 she corrected Mitt Romney. She was absolutely right. She had a factual point. He had misstated something. She slipped up and actually brought a fact into a debate as a journalist, which is exactly what you're supposed to do. The Republicans complained. I did it on the show. I ran their quotes on the show. The biggest mistake we ever we made in the election was letting Candy Crowley moderate a debate. We won't make that mistake again. And from then on, CNN bowed their head and agreed Candy Crowley would never moderate a debate again. So these guys have been taught, look, you're risking your multi-million-dollar salary if you ever ask a Republican a tough question or ever correct them on a fact. And even if you're 1,000% right, you will lose your job.
That's why you hear we have the highest corporate taxes in the world, and Anderson Cooper's looking at butterflies.
Yeah, and then when Democrats say, hey, we'd like to educate your kids, they say, you can't afford that. How are you going to pay for it, right? That's that same Anderson Cooper. Now, when I think it was Ted Cruz said, I'm going to increase the Air Force by 33%.
50%, I believe.
Oh, 50%.
I think he said it's 4,000, we need 6,000.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
That's right. Increase it by 50%. That's right. And let alone all the other defense increases that he talked about in that answer. Was there any question about, hey, how are you going to afford that? When it's Democrats and they propose anything in favor of the American people, how are you going to afford that? When it's build up the military, a military that is larger than the 8 other largest militaries combined? No. I see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, because I don't want to risk my multi-million-dollar job. Yeah. So that's what happened tonight. This debate was a debacle. And honestly, the final analysis of it is that we have an uneven playing field here because the media is so conservative, so pro-conservative, at the very, very least, so afraid of conservatives that the conservatives are allowed in every one of their debates and town halls to frame all the topics to their advantage. And the Democrats are not allowed that. The minute they say anything that is progressive, the moderators jump down their throat. You remember the last debate with Gwen Ifill and on PBS? I mean, asking them, not only the usual socialist questions, but everything, every single question was framed from a Republican perspective.
Yeah.
Given how much you'll increase the deficit.
Is the era of big government back?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, because that's a cool term because it doesn't actually mean anything. It's just a political buzzword that they've thrown around that you accept 100%, which is amazing. Even Rachel Maddow, who is probably amongst the more liberal people we're ever going to get on one of those stages, and definitely in the present, she was questioning, like, can you possibly be elected with saying that you're social? Like those same sorts of frames.
Yeah, and so at the end of the night, this wound up being a giant infomercial for the Republicans.
Yeah.
I don't mean specifically for Cruz, Rubio, and Carson, which it most certainly was.
Yeah.
But for the Republican ideology. So unchallenged, they will get to frame everything in their own way, and then Anderson Cooper will come in and humanize them and ask them about how much they love their wives,
Yeah.
and what are the different music that they listen to, and all the different things that might get somebody to go, oh yeah, I also listen to classical music like Ben Carson. What a sophisticated, intellectual guy he is.
Yeah, no,
how sweet of Ted Cruz to sing to his wife.
Yeah. Or what about this? What about Ted Cruz? So you say that we need to loosen the rules of engagement and we need to target Syrian cities with carpet bombing. So for the innocent civilians that live in that area, what do you think they do at night to relax? How do you think they met their wives and husbands? What music do they listen to? These civilians that you believe we're not free enough in targeting with our bombs.
Or as John pointed out during the debate, why doesn't one of them ask, you're for carpet bombing Syria. Well, do you think that there are no fetuses in the areas you'll be bombing?
Yeah.
Because you said earlier in the debate that you're pro-life and you would not stand for any of those fetuses losing their lives. Now, of course, they won't go to this level. If it was me, I would ask, well, it appears that you don't care about actual human beings that are alive because you understand that there are also innocent people down there that you'll be killing. You say collateral damage. What about the innocent fetuses?
Why are you pro late-term abortion by bomber-dropped explosive?
Yeah.
But they're never going to ask them a fucking question like that.
Never, never, never. They're so scared of the Republicans / they are Republicans. Okay.